I've got 4 new nets with me from Daiwa today, plus a retention sling. Now these 4 nets might look pretty similar as they stand here right now, but they've all got unique features and they're spread across 2 different ranges in the Daiwa lineup, both with familiar names. So 4 nets, 2 different ranges. 2 in the Crosscast range here, 2 in the slightly cheaper Black Widow range. Daiwa have had a bit of a shuffle up in their naming conventions of late, and it does make it easier to navigate their roster of products. They've tied a lot of them into their established and existing reel brands. So for example, where Emblem has been well established for decades as a reel brand, there are now Emblem rods that sit at the same sort of level price-wise. We've also got Crosscast rods, and they sit at the same sort of level as the well-established Crosscast reels. These are Crosscast nets, so you instantly know what sort of price you're expecting to pay, what sort of performance you're likely to get. Sitting at the cheaper end is the Black Widow range. Now that remains unchanged as far as names go. It's been Daiwa's budget range for a long time. So these are 4 different nets here, and actually they might look similar, but there are plenty of differences between them. Now I'm going to start with the Black Widow range, which is the cheaper of the 2 ranges on show today. There are 2 different nets in the Black Widow range, but both have exactly the same arms, same spreader block, same mesh. The arms are composite, the spreader block's plastic, but it looks pretty durable, and the mesh is 8mm fish-friendly mesh. It's actually exactly the same mesh as on the Crosscast version, although the cut is slightly different, I've noticed. On the Crosscast, you get a sort of bottom panel, whereas these just taper straight down, but the mesh itself is exactly the same. Now, where the 2 Black Widow versions differ is in the handle. Now this is the Black Widow EXT net. EXT is another new concept from Daiwa. It's all about traveling light, pared down rods specifically, those sort of 9 and 10 footers with retractable butt sections. There's also EXT luggage, and this is a Black Widow EXT net to complement all that. So it's got a short handle when it's packed away, or it extends. So the other Black Widow net has a single 1-piece handle. Difference in price is £5. This one is $49.99 RRP. The one with the 1-piece handle is $44.99 RRP. Moving up to the Crosscast range, again, you've got 2 choices, and the choice here is again with the handle. You can either choose a 1-piece standard handle of about 6 foot in length, or a 2-piece like the one I've got here. Both are 3K carbon weave handles and look very classy indeed. I've gone for the 2-piece. I quite like a 2-piece net, just when it's stuffed away in your holdall, and I have fished for the last 24 hours, and I have chosen this net to fish with. I've landed 1 fish so far, and I've briefly pegged it out in the margins whilst I recast the rod, and this mesh was deep enough to secure that fish, although it's not the deepest mesh around. I don't know if that's a personal choice really. I don't particularly like really deep meshes. I think you can trip over them or get them stuck in brambles. This is, I'd say it's probably on the slightly shallower side, but it's more than deep enough for any carp you'll encounter in this country. Again, the arms are carbon composite, and the mesh itself is the same mesh as on the Black Widow range, but with a different cut. It's got a bottom panel sewn in, which is perhaps a neater, more classy finish. Speaking of classy, we've got a black anodized aluminium spreader block here. Really small little spreader block, and the arms lock in nice and easily. They also unlock nice and easily, as I've proven when I removed the fish from the water earlier. So a 2-piece handle or a 1-piece handle, that's the choice with the Crosscast. The 2-piece will set you back $89.99 and the 1-piece $79.99. Finally, we have Daiwa's new Floating Weigh Sling, and I've been fortunate enough to try it with an actual fish earlier this morning, and it performed admirably. When I first saw this sling, I wondered if it might need bars that go across between the 2 long floating tubes just to keep it fully in shape, but it doesn't have them and really doesn't need them from what I can see. It keeps its shape really nicely. Perhaps that's due to the large amount of mesh that's being used in here. Water flows through nicely, it keeps its shape. Doesn't cling to the fish, drains well when you bring the fish onto your unhooking mat as well. It floats because there's foam along the full length of these 2 rods here, which is what gives it its buoyancy. There's carry handles at all 4 corners, so you can easily, if you've got a massive fish, you know, you could partner up with someone and carry a fish safely to the bank. Weighing a fish is done with these rings here that attach to your scales. You've got fluorescent strips just to help you keep sight of it in low light. And it attaches to a brass thread included for a bank stick and a long piece of cord as well. And quite frankly, it's done all I've asked of it. I like the fact that it's made more of mesh than it is of fabric. It's dried pretty quickly, and it costs $59.99.